Alright, here we go. Okay, we got Resplendent Lucina today. Not the most exciting Resplendent artwork for me, obviously. I mean, how many times do I have to say that? But at least Lucina is a pretty decent Resplendent hero. Now, her alongside Ike, they were the two most wanted Resplendent heroes for me. Because, of course, Ike is my favorite male character in the series, while Lucina is my favorite female character. So I was waiting on Lucina for quite some time after we got Ike, and here she is. Like it or not, I guess the +2 to all stats are going to be very nice. So what is there to say about this artwork that hasn't already been said? I mean, let's just skip the artwork discussion because you guys already know how I feel about that. And let's just talk about the builds today. Okay, so starting things off with Lucina's build, she has Falchion, of course, one of the better perf weapons day one because effective against dragons was actually very valuable at that time. This was way before skill inheritance was a thing, so a lot of people were running Adult Tiki and Naui at +10 because they were very easy to get merges on, of course, and they both come with Lightning Breath by default, so they both had access to Distant Counter without needing to dip into skill inheritance. So those two dragons were very good, and having effective against dragons, of course, was going to be very good too. Now, the only other day one sword unit I would say that was comparable to Lucina was probably Ryoma, because of course that guy has built-in distant counter as well. But statistically, Lucina was actually better than him. Her stat line actually holds up very well for a day one unit. She had 34 base attack and 36 base speed, which is way better than a lot of the other day one swords. And now with the +2 to all stats, she's sitting on 36 base attack and 38 base speed. So it's nice to finally see her get a little spotlight once again. She also came with Aether, Defiant Speed 3, and Spur Attack 3. Of course, there's nothing too special about this now, but back then, having Aether right out of the box was very awesome. And of course, Spur Attack 3, which was one of the better support type skills. So it's not really hard to see why Lucina would have been one of the best sword units or just day one units in general at that time. And if we fast forward ahead to what's going on today, she was able to get 2 different refines, which is nice. So we have the Falchion refine for the Awakening units, which gives a Drive Spectrum type of buff where you're gaining +4 to all stats if you're adjacent to an ally. You also keep the effective against dragon part. And on the start of odd-numbered turns, you will get the renewal effect, so +10 HP. Pretty solid refine, but you could also go for Sealed Falchion as well, which is going to simply grant Lucina +5 to all stats if she's not on full health. Very easy condition to meet, and you also keep the effective against dragons. So she has 2 pretty solid weapon options there. And for recommended IVs on Lucina, I gotta say go for plus speed. It's just going to help her out in the long run on most of the builds you're going to be using with her. So just keep that in mind. And to start us off, we have the budget build here. Now, I'm honestly getting real tired of having to suggest this one. It's just Fury, Desperation, and Brazen Attack and Speed. Same old that we've seen on all of these budget builds if you're an offensive unit, basically. When is Insys going to start giving us some other options? Like, we could really use some different A-slot options besides Fury 3. And to be honest, the only other thing I could think of here, which would be good for defensive units, would be like Distant Ward and Distant Foil and stuff. And I doubt they're going to want to give those out as free-to-play options. But to be fair, they're not really better than Distant Counter. It's not like in the case of Close Foil and Close Counter where you can make the argument Close Foil is better because dragons aren't as common. But the split between bows and daggers and magic and staff is just way too big. So I could see them doing Distant Ward and Distant Foil maybe at some point as free-to-play. More so Distant Foil, I would guess, because of course mages are a little bit more common in a mode like Aether Raids. But still, any different A-slot options for free-to-play would be very welcome at this point. Otherwise, it's a very basic build. Very standard fare. As soon as you take the chip damage from Fury 3, you're going to start getting Sealed Falchion to activate, which is just +5 to all stats. Nowadays, that's like the secondary effect on these weapons, and then the main effect is like -1 special trigger, damage reduction, null follow-up, lull attack and defense 5, and like all these crazy effects. The weapons now are just completely insane, but at least Sealed Falchion is in a better spot than a lot of other weapons. And really the only skill here that I would say is up for debate is the C slot. I'm going for Rouse, Speed, and Defense, because it's not hard to gain the buffs from that. But feel free to run something else if you want to support the team, like a tactic skill or an opening skill or something like that. The C slot has always been a very flexible option, so just go for whatever you think is best. And moving on to the high investment build, we're taking a look at basically a more Big Brother version of the budget build, if you want to call it. Attack and Speed Push 4 is going to work out a little bit better than Fury 3 here, because we're getting more focused stats into attack and speed, and we're still taking the chip damage for Sealed Falchion to do its thing. But you could go for Fury 4 as well, and it's going to give you +4 to defense and res on top of 4 to attack and speed. So you may end up with a little bit more bulk with Fury 4. Also, you don't have to worry about it wearing off anytime during the battle, because attack and speed push is going to stop working once you dip below 25% health. Either one is going to work just fine. We have Aether as the special, combined with the Flashing Blades Sacred Seal, just to give her some healing. I mean, we went with Spurn 3 for the B slot for the damage reduction, so it is nice to have damage reduction and healing together. So that's why I opted for this combo. But Ruptured Sky would be a nice special option as well if you want to just pile on some damage, and in which case you would change your Sacred Seal to either Brazen Attack and Speed, or maybe Speed and Res solo, or Attack and Defense solo. Any of those are going to work out just fine. But if damage reduction does not enamor you, there's so many other options you could run here, like maybe lull Speed and Defense, or lull Attack and Speed. There's also null follow-up. We have Special Spiral if you want to go for Ruptured Sky. You could try a Ruse skill as well, like Ruse Speed and Defense or Ruse Attack and Speed. Like, the sky is just the limit, honestly, when it comes to B-slot passives for these infantry-type units. So just pick whichever one you think is going to work out the best. And finally, we have Joint Drive Speed for the C slot. It's going to combo really nicely, of course, with Spurn 3 and raising Lucina's overall speed stat. And when all of these skills are taken into account, Lucina ends up with a whopping 58 speed here. So it seems pretty likely she's going to be able to get the full damage reduction from Spurn 3. And last but not least, we have a high investment build for baiting if you want to. This time around, we are going to be running the Awakening Refine for the Falchion. It works out a little bit better for a bait build, I think, because you're able to gain the all stats +4 without being chipped on HP. So you can get it for the first round of combat. And it also comes with that really clutch renewal effect. So just +10 HP healing at the start of every odd number turn. Very nice sustain for a bait build like this. And it helps us run an offensive-based special like Ruptured Sky, instead of going for classic sustained specials like Noontime or Aether or something like that, which is pretty nice. Now, if you're going to run this Lucina build, you're definitely going to want to have some good support options here. So Air is a very good option to support. She has Sparkling Boost, which can easily pile on with the renewal healing and keep Lucina sustained. She also provides the Light Blessing with plus res as the bonus. So if you're going to be running this Lucina in Aether raids, you're going to get a lot of res from having Air behind her. And of course, you're going to want to have a Breath type of effect to support if you want to ramp into Ruptured Sky. And Brave Lucina could be an option, but honestly, you don't even need to run Brave Lucina here. You'd actually run a unit that has Infantry Breath, a skill we don't really run all that often, but because Lucina's weapon requires her to be adjacent to an ally to gain the stat bonuses, might as well get some mileage out of that skill. If you happen to have it, of course. It is pretty rare. But it is a nice way to get around Brave Lucina. if you don't have her. So definitely not bad. Of course, we're running distant counter on the build, so she can counterattack anybody. Spurn 3 once again for the damage reduction. But just like we saw on the previous build, if you'd prefer to go for something else, like maybe lull attack and defense, or lull attack and speed, maybe null follow-up, or something like that, you could definitely try those instead. And we have Pulse Smoke as the C-slots, so we can deal more readily with infantry pulse setups. But your other standard fare options like Joint Drives or Attack Smoke are going to work out just as well. And finally, Speed and Res Bond 3 for the seal. We're not allowed to run Speed and Res solo here because, of course, you gotta be adjacent to gain the stat bonuses with her weapon. So might as well just go ahead and run a Bond skill for the Sacred Seal this time. So that's gonna wrap us up for the builds for Resplendent Lucina. Overall, pretty good day 1 unit. And she's one of those rare units where the +2 to all stats from the Resplendent alt actually does help her out a fair bit. And it looks like our next Resplendent hero is going to be Niles. I'm pretty happy about this, to be honest. His artwork is really dope too. I love the moose spell attire they went with for this guy. And it kind of reminds me of the Halloween Niles a little bit, where he was wearing the devil outfit. And I believe he had a cape in that one as well. So definitely fits Niles to have the moose spell attire, I would say. Let me know in the comments section down below, of course, what your thoughts are on this new Niles. And who do you think is going to be the next Resplendent hero after him? I'm really glad they didn't do Crom after Lucina like I thought. Because, of course, they did Marth after Kata. And I was really worried they were just going to follow a trend there and just do similar units back to back. But thank God we broke the chain of those constant sword units in a row. And that's going to wrap us up for today. So thanks so much to everyone for watching the video. Hope you guys enjoyed the builds for Lucina. And this is your boy Tacho signing out. So take care, fellas. And I will catch y'all again on the flip side.